I'm so glad that we have both of our esteemed legal experts on with us today. Because some good news. I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but let's just get into it. So yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court finally heard the Medical Marijuana Incorporated versus Horn appeal, which is a case that I9 News has been following closely over the last year over about Douglas Horn, a New York State commercial trucker who was fired from the job he had held for more than a decade after popping positive on a random drug test for THC after taking a CBD tincture believed otherwise or labeled otherwise. In 2020, Horn was ailing from injuries sustained in a trucking accident while working, so he purchased Dixie X, an over-the-counter CBD tincture labeled as THC-free. Shocked, Horn said that he sent Dixie X to a lab, which confirmed it indeed contained THC. He was fired, and after over a decade over legal battles, the case had finally made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And according to Reuters reporter John Krusel, the justices heard an appeal led by Dixie X producer, Medical Marijuana Incorporated, of a lower court's decision allowing Horn to bring a civil suit against San Diego, California-based company under the RICO Act. The civil provisions in the law permit triple damages for successful lawsuits by any person injured in his business or property as a result of certain actions by a defendant. So per the article, tripping on my words today, sorry, y'all. Per the article, some of the justices seemed receptive to the company's argument that Horn's loss of employment was not the kind of business injury that Congress meant to guard against when it enacted the RICO Act. Of course, it was conservative Justice Brett Kavanaugh that expressed concern about making it too easy for plaintiffs to bring civil RICO suits simply by characterizing certain personal injuries as injuries to a business or property. That would be a dramatic, really radical shift in how tort suits are brought throughout the United States, Kavanaugh told Horn's lawyer, Yesha Anand, referring to personal injury law known as torts. And we would expect a clearer indication from Congress. Lisa Blatt, the lawyer representing Medical Marijuana Incorporated, argued that allowing Horn's suit to proceed would open the door to plaintiffs making a federal case out of personal injury complaints better addressed under state law. It is utterly implausible that Congress federalized every slip and fall involving RICO predicates, Blatt said, referring to RICO crimes such as embezzlement, extortion, or mail fraud. But according to Krusel, the questions posed by some of the justices suggested that they might be inclined to let Horn's civil RICO suit proceed. Liberal Justice Elena Kagan asked Blatt this: "If you're harmed when you lose a job, then you've been injured in your business, have you not?" I guess what I'm saying is the simplest, clearest reading of this statutory language is it does not distinguish by what causes the harm. It just says if you're harmed but in a way that's in your business or property, which has been understood to include being harmed by loss of a job, and that's by reason of a racketeering activity, then you're entitled to threefold the damages you would otherwise be. Horn and his wife Cindy have been doing all the right things to get to this point. In 2015, they brought a lawsuit in federal court in New York seeking monetary damages, claiming, among other things, that Medical Marijuana Incorporated and associated companies violated RICO's provisions. Horn had the tincture independently tested in a laboratory, which confirmed that the product indeed contained THC. And according to the suit, a pattern of racketeering activity by the companies, including violations of the Federal Controlled Substance. Let me finish. Including violations by the Federal Controlled Substances Act, as well as mail fraud and wire fraud, inflicted a business or property injury on Horn in the form of his firing. A federal trial judge ruled against Horn's civil RICO claim, but New York's Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the judge's decision, prompting Medical Marijuana's appeal to the Supreme Court. The justices are expected to rule in the case by the end of June. I guess my question here specifically to our own in-house legal experts, Uncle Dale, Tio Loco Schaefer, and Omar Figueroa, is if Horn ends up winning this civil RICO against the company, will it open the floodgates for 1 million more lawsuits from folks who've ingested CBD labeled products that have also been found to contain THC? What would be the effect of this should he go forward, and when? I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News. Let's talk about it.
Certainly possible.
What's that, Dale?
Definitely open the floodgates to litigation if the Supreme Court upholds a civil RICO action. Something that's notable about a civil RICO action is that there's treble damages plus attorney fees. So there's incredible incentives for plaintiffs' lawyers to take on civil RICO cases. So I do anticipate that if the Second Circuit is affirmed by the Supreme Court, that there will be more litigation of this type. And just because a lawsuit is filed doesn't mean it's meritorious, but we will see increased litigation.
Well, I'd like to see clarification of the predicate part of this, that you in fact are engaging in RICO activities, because this seems more like an unfair business practice and false advertising. Okay, and I'd like to see some breakdown of that, because RICO was designed for organized crime, and it's now being tethered out to apply to business activities that most states find are unlawful. But to get into the federal area, I'd like to see that clarified a little more, because I got business clients. I want to make sure I advise them properly. And this one, it could throw, like I told you earlier, a huge turd in the punch bowl here for businesses trying to do this, because there's a line between puffing and outright lying. Mm-hmm. And this one, you say there's no THC in there. Well, hemp allows 0.3% THC. And this is like being on probation and eating poppy seed cake and pissing positive. Okay. Where does this really fall into the intent of RICO? And if so, I want it clarified, because as Omar said, the attorney's fees and treble damages could be, astronomical for some of these businesses. Just think they're trying to sell product by shading the truth a little bit.
I have a question. How do we know that this trucker didn't actually try some cannabis and is just using this tincture as a scapegoat for the reason that he tested positive?
Well, they said he sent it to a lab, right, for independent testing.
Right, he did say that. And then, we've had, from a formulary standpoint, we've had issues in the past where we had a tincture that was a CBD, CBN, all hemp derived, no THC, right? But the body metabolizes CBN back to its original form, which is THC. So when you've had no THC, but you have that hemp derived CBN, you can still pop pot. So we realized that very quickly on and couldn't sell it to people who were like in the military or police officers or things like that. So I wonder from a formulary standpoint, which formulary he got. Also, that's a heat process that converts THC into, which you pull from the mother liquor in hemp products, into CBN, right?
I love when y'all say mother liquor.
Reverse. I know you do, Jason, but I just think that's interesting. I'd like to see which form of Dixie Elixir's tincture he got. And Rico, if you don't believe me, it's a much bigger company. You're welcome to go look.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, they are a very big company. They are a very big company. You are right about that, Jenny Beth.
I have another question too for Dale and Omar. Is there any possibility that Dixie or Medical Marijuana Inc. Could transfer liability onto the lab for potentially giving them incorrect results, even though we know that probably that was done intentionally so that it could be certified as hemp and sold?
Yeah, they'll probably point fingers at each other, and in the end, by pointing fingers at each other, they just prove each other liable. So that's something that often happens.
I mean,
I'd cross-complain against them if there was any reason to believe, because you want to bring their insurance company into it also, and extra eyes on the case. It's fairly common in these larger tort cases that they bring everybody to the party to make sure that they've got more deep pockets to pull money from. But I would like to see clarification for practicing attorneys on what exactly qualifies as a RICO violation, because this could be, could be huge for companies trying to start up, because right now, I don't think hemp companies are really doing the types of COAs we see in like California cannabis, where they're looking for everything. As I said, you're going to find THC in these products because it's difficult to scrub it out.
So
Well, and I wonder, honestly, if they only tested the
RICO litigation in the past, suing the police department and using civil RICO statute to allege that certain police who were like robbing motorists on Highway 101 were a racketeering enterprise. And we had a successful federal lawsuit in San Francisco federal court. So I know civil RICO is extremely broad, but it's not often litigated in modern times. And there's not a whole lot of civil RICO experts. And so the guidance that you're looking for is probably not going to come, Dale. What's going to happen is plaintiffs' lawyers are going to file lawsuits and the courts will interpret the scope of the RICO statute. You know, that's what happened in this case that we're discussing.
So you're saying it's all going to happen on a case-by-case basis, Omar?
Yeah, that's probably how it's going to happen. There's not going to be any advisory opinion that, you know, lays it out what the scope of liability is. But really, a lot of these businesses, they're not doing an intricate RICO analysis, because if they were, they would stop what they're doing immediately. So they're just proceeding regardless of the intricate RICO analysis.
I mean, couldn't these guys...
Omar, so if this thing rises to the top and this guy Horn actually wins, what happens to all of these companies that are on Amazon that you can order online? Like so many of these companies have been found to have like THC levels higher than are actually permitted. Are people going to be able to sue them out of existence? Like every single one of them? Like
some of them see the writing on the wall and, you know, are probably getting ready to transfer their assets and into shelter.
Get the hell out of America.
To that point, honestly, that's probably better for the plaintiff in that case, because now you can bring Amazon into it, and you know they got some very, very deep pockets.
Well, couldn't...
Well, and to be fair to the company, if he only did a retest on the one tincture that he had, was to say this guy didn't, like Jason said, smoke a joint on Saturday night before his piss test, squeeze a couple drops of distillate in there, and he's like, "Oh, it wasn't my fault. I took this."
Exactly.
Well, he claimed under oath. He claimed under oath that he has never been a marijuana user and has never touched marijuana.
Doesn't
and
mean
that was
he's not
literally
a liar.
The only product that he has ever taken.
And the Menendez brothers said under oath they didn't kill their parents.
Fair enough. I have a question for you guys. I have a question for Omar and for Dale. Couldn't these companies limit their liability if they just had like a little stick figure, like pissing on a tree with like a little circle and a line going through it to show that like it could possibly give you a dirty test?
I think there's better ways to
always helpful. Disclaimers are always helpful. That's why when you see a drug commercial on TV, they run through the litany of shit that could happen to you. You know, that's assumption of the risk. You can try that. When you specifically advertise there's no THC and you put a disclaimer, oh, you might find some, I think you still got some problems there. And I don't know about you, Omar, but I've attended a few marketing meetings where you just want to slap the shit out of people coming up with stupid ideas of how to sell products. And this should be incorporated in those, you know, sit down and shut up. You're going to get everybody sued if you try that kind of stuff. And it's a lesson for the industry that we still got a lot of problems we have to try and tether out here.
It's the danger. It's the danger that you. Go ahead, Omar.
That cannot be, you know, cashed. It's a huge problem. And so many times the marketing people are disconnected from production and from actual sales and the whole, you know, supply chain. And so it's really important to review marketing efforts because they could lead to tremendous liability as we see in this case.